we're done with day one. We're going into day 0.5 today, of course, and it comes to this very important summit in Beijing. Let's have a look at the coverage of the summit across state media. Today, it's obviously dominating the front pages of many. Let's start off with the People's Daily, with the coverage highlighting the president's message on overcoming this great power rivalry and his warning on Taiwan. The paper also runs separate items on the leader's visit to the Temple of Heaven, and also highlights, of course, from, I'm sure many of you have seen, many versions of it, some of the viral clips across the state banquet overnight. Some other headlines and commentary about the summit too. Xinhua News highlighting what it calls a new vision for U.S.-China ties, and Trump's comments calling Xi a great leader. Now, a Global Times editorial talks of a new positioning in relations where both countries move beyond a zero-sum game and work toward or together to address challenges. Right, China Daily, let's have a look at what's happening there. So it's calling for a, quote, new vision for a constructive relationship of strategic stability. Okay, that's fairly long. That's a mouthful. But yes, suffice to say, it's almost this a broader reset of relations. And of course, Yvonne, that invites overnight, September 24, mark your calendars now, of course, that invite to the White House. From
where President Xi potentially could end up in the U.S. side of things here and continue this exchange, right? And despite sort of the grand ceremony, despite this glowing coverage that we saw yesterday, we have been parsing through some of the summit readouts, both from the Beijing side of things and D.C. And you're seeing things, there are going to be similarities, there are going to be things where it looks a little bit more, I guess you could say, murky, right? Taiwan, as you say, remains the most critical issue when it comes to China and U.S. relations. And as we talked about this readout that came out on Xinhua, while the two sides were still behind closed doors and negotiating, I think just goes to show China's position in all this, and that, Taiwan has become that key risk between the two nations here. If you take a look at the language that came through in that readout, right, if handled poorly, the two countries will clash and really pushing into some sort of conflict here, and really talking about, really put the two sides in a dangerous sort of territory. So Taiwan is most important, they say, according to Beijing. If not handled properly, will lead to clashes and conflicts. And the U.S. side is alarmingly interesting, too. There was no mention in their readout. There were also a lot of these, gatherings that we saw where reporters were asking questions or shouting questions to President Trump when he was with President Xi, and, asking about, did you guys talk about Taiwan? Did you talk about Taiwan? And there was really notable silence from President Trump there. He didn't really want to go there and even answer the idea of whether this topic was even discussed there when they were at the Temple of Heaven. Now, take a look when it comes to U.S.-China ties, meanwhile, here. The Beijing sort of rhetoric is to build constructive relationship of strategic stability. This is something that we've always have heard in terms of the language from the Chinese side. No direct mention when it came to the U.S. And on the Iran war. Now, Beijing was a little bit more vague, saying, views were exchanged when it came to, of course, the Middle East situation, what China's role is in trying to mitigate what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. said, both sides still agree that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. Trump also have said in interviews that China did offer to help on Iran, that they were willing to support these negotiations. Whether that goes as far as doing anything to reopen the Strait of Hormuz is another question, though, Dave.